All right, hi everybody. I'm just waiting on the organizers to tell me that we are ready to go. So just give me a couple of seconds and hopefully we can get started. So I guess the idea of this is so that you can sort of interact with me and ask me your questions. So please do send in your questions. You can ask me anything you like and hopefully I'll be able to answer them the best that I can. So how is everybody doing this morning? Yes, nobody's talking or responding. Okay, so you want to talk about my background. So my name is Hasini. I am currently a postdoctoral researcher at Stanford University, and I work in the Department of Pediatrics, where I study mechanisms governing relapse. I was born in Australia, actually, even though it's been reported that I was born in Sri Lanka. My parents lived a couple of years in Australia, and so I was born there while they lived there. But we moved to Sri Lanka when I was very young. I think I was like 2 or 3 years old, and so I went to school entirely in Sri Lanka. I went to Montessori to about grade 7 to St. Bridget's Convent, and then I did from grade 7 through my A-levels. I was at Stafford International School. And then after I did my A-levels, I went to Johns Hopkins University to pursue a major in chemical and biomolecular engineering. And then I went on to do my PhD in chemical and biomolecular engineering as well. So that's a little bit about my academic background. So why did I decide to study chemical and biomolecular engineering? So when I was in school, I think as young as probably like grade 8, grade 9, through my O-levels and A-levels, I really enjoyed biology, physics, chemistry, and math. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do when I actually went to college. I knew that I was very interested in biology, chemistry, physics, and math. And so I wanted to pursue a major that sort of combined all 4 of these subjects. And for me, that was chemical and biomolecular engineering. I really enjoyed studying like process analysis and like doing like traditional chemical engineering stuff. But I also liked the fact that my program was also very into the bioengineering stuff. So we would apply sort of an engineering perspective into cell biology. So that was one of the reasons I decided to pursue chemical and biomolecular engineering. And then for my PhD, because the idea for my PhD thesis came from the work that I had done as an undergraduate student, it just seemed very natural for me to pursue a PhD in chemical and biomolecular engineering. So did I decide to do my doctorate right after my BSc? Yes, I did. I kind of skipped the whole master's degree and went straight into the PhD program, straight from my bachelor's degree. It was, for me, it was the right fit. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's the right fit for everybody, but for me, going directly into the PhD program was, at the time, what was best for me. Pasanu, that is a great question. Unfortunately, I can't give you one answer for that. It's going to get me into a lot of trouble. So right now I'm going to say my two best friends are my two cats, who are named Boots and Stella, who probably will make an appearance at some point because they do love to come and hang out when I'm on a video chat. Is there a cure for cancer? I'm going to say yes and no. We have made, and by we, I mean researchers, clinicians have made very groundbreaking developments over the past couple of years. One particular area of success that we can talk about now is sort of this area of immunotherapy, and especially immunotherapy in children. It has shown a 90% success rate of curing cancer in children. And so there is sort of a cure for particular types of cancers, but there isn't really one for other types of cancers. And you also have people who have had cancer and are continuing to live for many, many years and end up passing away due to like other complications like heart disease and so on, and not necessarily due to their cancers. So I think it really depends on the patient, the type of cancer you have, and the type of treatments that are available. What do I think about the approaches to cancer in Western and indigenous medicine? So I actually don't know too much about the topic, to be honest. I don't really know about these indigenous approaches that people have to treating cancer. So I don't think I'm, the right person to comment on it. But what I can say is, putting aside the whole indigenous and Western medicine fact, what I can say is I think, leading a healthy lifestyle definitely does help in sort of preventing cancer. And by that, I mean just eating well, exercising, sleeping well. And these are things that, not only contribute to maybe, preventing cancer, but also other diseases in the body and help you live a much healthier life. What was my research topic for my PhD? So I'm going to try and remember the title. I think it was the mechanistic coupling of tumor cell proliferation and migration in the tumor microenvironment. I think that was the title of my thesis. I don't remember. So the topic of my thesis was basically this work that I've done where I was able to discover a new signaling mechanism that cancer cells use to communicate with each other and help them migrate through the body and spread to different parts of the body. So that was chapter 1 and 2, where I did in vitro studies. So those are studies in the dish, and also preclinical studies, which are studies in the mouse. And then my third chapter was actually combining this drug cocktail that we've developed to target metastases, and combine it with another therapeutic to simultaneously target both tumor growth and metastases. And so that was the third chapter of my thesis. So, yeah. No more questions? Nobody, I guess nobody's really interested in asking me questions. Okay, well, what should I talk about? Oh, sorry. Just saw a bunch of other questions, my bad. Kulendra says, would it be worthwhile to talk about what cancer means in 2 minutes, as in from a biological sense, what happens and why it becomes problematic? Great question. So what is cancer? Cancer is the uncontrolled proliferation of cells. That means the cells grow and they're not controlled. So usually in our body, this process of proliferation, which is this cell division, is controlled very tightly by different mechanisms. And so with cancer, what happens is something mutates, something happens to the cell, and then it just starts dividing like crazy, and it becomes very aggressive. It grows really fast, it can spread, and it sort of uses up all like the nutritions like in the body. Like for instance, like if it goes to the liver, it like uses up whatever good stuff is in your liver and so on. And one of the reasons that it's hard to target is because cancer for the most part looks like a normal cell, but it's more aggressive and more just difficult to sort of identify. And so therapies that sometimes target cancer cells can also target normal cells in the body. And this is why some cancer patients really like get affected by these chemotherapies. Their hair falls off and they feel really sick and so on and so forth. And so one of the new approaches to sort of overcome the effects of chemotherapy is immunotherapy, in which we use sort of the natural defenses of the body to sort of attack these cancer cells. And so we're hoping that approach will have less side effects and better outcomes for patients. Parami says, why say processing food would direct you to have cancer? Is it really a threatening fact? I mean, I don't know about processed food, but I would just say, just eating healthy, eating in moderation. I'm not saying don't have sugar, don't have ice cream. I love ice cream. Don't have chocolates or anything like that. I'm just saying everything in moderation. I think sometimes, and I think I'm also guilty of this, where sometimes I have things in excessive, and, you have to sort of find a healthy balance that works for you. Why don't I work in Sri Lanka? I don't work in Sri Lanka because this is where I've lived for the past 9 years. This is where I got my higher education, and then it was just sort of, one opportunity after the next. And so once I finished my PhD, I was given this opportunity to come to Stanford and work at Stanford and learn from incredible researchers and clinicians, and also apply new technologies to sort of further my work and my understanding of metastases and relapse and so on. And so that is one of the reasons why, I just haven't had the opportunity to sort of move back to Sri Lanka. I would love to move back to Sri Lanka, but I also think that right now is sort of not the time for me in terms of where I am in my career. All right. How do you see the oncolytic virus treatment for specific malignancies? Future hope for that. oncolytic viruses are very cool. So basically, oncolytic viruses are where they reprogram viruses such as an HIV virus or a herpes virus or something like that, just inactivate it and actually program it to only infect cancer cells. And this is work that I've seen happen at different institutions by different groups. And the preliminary work that I've seen is extremely promising, and it's something that I got very excited about when I saw the results of it. I believe that one of the oncolytic viruses went into a phase 2 or a phase 3 clinical trial with Amgen. I believe it's Amgen. And so I think they're sort of seeing a very positive result with it. And this is something that, more and more I think we will see as in cancer treatments, but as long as it's safe for the human. Sometimes using these viruses, even though they're inactivated, you don't really know the outcomes unless you conduct extensive testing. And I think that's what they're doing right now. So it's definitely very exciting stuff, very cool stuff, and stuff that I would love to do in the future. So Hasita says, any advice for BME undergraduates who are interested in doing research? Yeah, get involved in research. I think find opportunities that interest you, be passionate about the work you do, and just be hardworking and dedicated. And I know that some of the BME students that I've mentored previously who are at local universities or were at local universities in Sri Lanka did look for opportunities in other countries such as Australia. I think some of them did some rotations in Europe and the US. And so maybe trying to find like a summer opportunity for you to sort of come to the US or Australia and like work in one of these labs is definitely a good starting point for you if you're actually thinking about, pursuing a postgrad degree in a country abroad. What is my opinion about stem cell therapy for cancer treatments? I actually don't have an opinion. I don't have anything negative to say. I don't have anything positive to say. I think it's still like very preliminary data. I think they're showing it's a very promising sort of treatment that's coming out. Yeah, that's all I have for you. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about stem cell therapy for cancer treatments. Is cancer alive or exactly what? Kind of bacteria, fungi, I am not sure what you're asking here, Parami. I'm sorry. Could you clarify that question for me? I'm sorry. Dulan says, what skills do you find the most useful in your work? That's a tough one. I think just, I think anybody can sort of learn how to do a technique. There have been many times where I've wanted to do a technique, but just didn't know how to. But, if you put in the time and the effort, you can learn it. So I think the most important skill is sort of just being open to learning and just wanting to learn and picking up new techniques and being hardworking. And I think that's the best skill you can sort of have as a researcher. Is there any medicine for fully heal cancer? Is there any medicine to fully heal cancer? Again, it really depends on the type of cancer you have, the type of treatments that are available. That's all I got for you. Sorry. Okay. How long have you been working on the current research and what kept you going? So my current research, which is in pediatric cancer, I have been working on since January this year, and it is what keeps me going. What keeps me going is the fact that I love what I do. I wake up every day and I'm just so excited to go into lab and, do new experiments or data analysis or read about new research. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. And so I think, being passionate about what you do is very important. And I also think that a part something that drives me is the fact that I feel like I'm contributing to society, to the betterment of society through my research. If that means better understanding a mechanism that governs relapse or metastases, I think that's worthwhile, because somebody else, the next person could come along and sort of use my research to sort of, develop the next big therapy or the next big treatment. And so that is also a factor that plays into why I just keep going and I love what I do. All right, so and are you doing any other researches while you are doing your primary cancer pathway research? Does that mean, am I working on multiple projects? If so, yes, I always work on multiple projects. It's just the way I'm wired. I don't like to just focus myself on one project. So two of the projects that I work on right now, one of them focuses on childhood leukemia, and the other focuses on childhood neuroblastoma, and they both use very different skill sets. They both use very different techniques, and that's the way I've sort of structured the way I approach my research. Some people don't like that as much. They like to focus on one project, but personally for me, I find it more interesting if I'm juggling two projects at the same time, and that's the way I've always been. What skills must a researcher have? Curiosity, just passion for research, and asking questions, developing good hypotheses, the ability to work hard, the ability to work, long nights. It's not easy. It's something, all researchers do. Sometimes we put in crazy long hour days, and sometimes we work weekends and so on. And so just being dedicated and just working hard, I think, are the most important skills, and you can pick up the techniques as you go. So I wouldn't necessarily say there are a particular set of techniques you should know or a particular set of skills you should have. Just being enthusiastic and ready to work hard, I think, is the most important thing. Can you brief your path to reach your goal? Is this a dream to become a researcher? Did I imagine myself to become a cancer researcher when I was young? No, I did not. I actually, I think when I was like probably 15 or 16, I wanted to be a race car driver, and my father thought I was absolutely nuts. And which I kind of was. And when I was learning to drive when I was 18, I think he was just really afraid that I would, do my high-speed car chases, get into so much of trouble, and, no, my goal was never to be a cancer researcher. And I joke right now that I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, even though I am grown up. For me, it's just been sort of the trajectory that my career has sent me on. I was just at the right place at the right time, and had like some luck, to be honest. When I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And the way I fell into cancer research was because I saw my previous boss present on his work on metastases. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I can go work for him for a semester and then maybe get a recommendation letter, and that's it. Like, my plan was just to work for him for a semester. I ended up working for him for 3 years as an undergraduate student. And then I did my PhD with him. And then I stayed another year to work with him because I loved working with him so much. And so I think he was an integral part of sort of molding me into the researcher I am, and also like molding my goals, because I remember when I had finished my PhD, I had decided I didn't think I wanted to stay in this academic life, and I decided that maybe I wanted to go to the industry. And he actually sat me down and said, no, I think you should go do a postdoc. And I was like, why? I'm not going into academia. I'm not interested in becoming a professor. He said, no, go try it out. Just give yourself a year. Just go try it out. See how you feel. And he was right. I love being an academic. Now my goal is I would love to become an assistant professor, and I would love to have like my own lab. And he was somebody that had sort of a vision for me when I didn't. And so it's always important to have mentors who are guiding you in a particular way and giving you good advice, but ultimately letting you make your decisions. And I'm very lucky to have had him, or still have him in my life, guiding sort of my career path and trajectory. So. How do you feel about making it to the Forbes 30 under 30 list? Yeah, I think it's absolutely insane. I don't think it's sunk in just yet. Because I receive all these incredible messages from people around the world congratulating me and so on, but my life really hasn't changed. My day-to-day life, I still wake up super early, go to work, and work long hours, come home and cook and clean and play with my cats and hang out with my friends. And so my day-to-day life hasn't changed. So I think that's why I sort of haven't felt the impact of it. It's a great honor. Not only for me, but also for my friends, my family, my alma maters, and also, my country, Sri Lanka. I am proud to bring this honor to them and hopefully, continue to make them proud and hopefully do some work down the line. For me, this recognition is sort of a stepping platform for me to launch to what I want to do down the line. And so I'm hoping that this will help me sort of get that assistant professorship that I want and start my own lab and really pursue the research that I want to pursue. If you have one superpower which you can change the world, what will you do? I don't know. That's a really tough question. That's something that I have to sit and think about for at least 3 days. But that's a great question. I appreciate that one. What is my ultimate research goal? My ultimate research goal is to, really understand these mechanisms that govern relapse and metastases. I, want to hope, after I'm done with my postdoc in a few years, I'd like to again set up my own lab and really focus in on these questions that I want to pursue. I'd like to study not only pediatric cancers, but adult cancers as well. And hopefully by understanding the mechanisms that I study, I hope that we can develop better therapeutics and we can also develop, have better outcomes for patients. So that is sort of the ultimate research goal. Not a Nobel Prize, I'm sorry. I know everybody's waiting for me to say that, but I don't think that's going to happen. What do you think your qualities qualities of a good PhD program mentor, and how can we identify them quickly? I don't know if you can identify them quickly, but a good PhD program mentor is somebody who takes the time, at least for me, and this is from my personal experience, and I'm sure everybody has a different experience. For me, it was somebody who took their time to sit down with me and talk to me about, my immediate goals as well as my long-term goals, and also took time to sort of identify my strengths and my weaknesses and, play to my strengths and also work on my weaknesses. The other thing that I think makes a good PhD program mentor is sort of someone who is open to your ideas. If my previous PI wasn't open to my ideas, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'd be working on some other project. And I don't know if, I would have had all these opportunities that I've had if I had worked on some other project. So just being open to everybody's ideas and being a good communicator and treating people well, I think that is very important in the sense that you have these brilliant PIs who do incredible things and who are absolutely smart, but sometimes they kind of miss the little things that help their students like move forward, just, you know, being kind to them and so on. And so I always say the best way to find a good PhD mentor is sort of to talk to the current students and see what they say. Like, are they saying positive things? Are they saying, you know, they're unhappy? Or so my advice would just be talk to people, communicate with them, and see if it's the best fit for you. Ishan says, so how is your progress as a researcher? I mean, how long have you come? I recently read the article that said, we human beings are losing our battle against cancer. We are not losing the battle against cancer, I can assure you. So much of cool work is happening. So many incredibly smart people are working on it. And our survival rates have increased. You know, maybe they're not where we want to see them, but, you know, we are seeing an improvement. And so I don't believe we're losing the battle. We might not be gaining any ground, but, you know, we're not losing it. How is my progress as a researcher? I mean, how long have I come? So I started as an undergraduate researcher, and then I moved into a PhD student, and now I'm a postdoc. So I am at the very, 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 very early stages of my career and my research career. And so I probably have a solid like 50 more years to go. So yeah, I know it's kind of sad when you think that I have 50 more years to go, but you know, it is what it is. But I know that, you know, every step of those 50 years is going to be incredibly interesting. It's going to be challenging, but it's going to keep me on my toes and help me answer really awesome questions. I already have a superpower. Oh, thank you. I didn't know that. Maybe if you could help me and tell me what my superpower is, you know, that would help me greatly. What advice would you give to a smart-driven college student about entering the real world? The real world. I mean, so with my, I mentor quite a few students, and some of my students that, some of the students that I worked with on a daily basis, I call them my minions, because it's just a fun way for us to have, you know, joke around about the fact that they are my minions and they do my experiments. I love them all. They're incredible. And without my team, I wouldn't be here. So anyway, for my minions, I would be like very strict about certain things, like communication was important for me. Punctuality was important to me. And just, you know, working well in a team, because I think when you go out into the real world, those are the important traits that you need to have. You need to be able to communicate well. You need to be able to work in a team and get along with your teammates and your colleagues. And you need to be punctual. Nobody likes to sit around waiting for people. And so it was very important for me to sort of teach them those three traits. And I think that has sort of helped them with their careers now that they're pursuing. Are you continuing as a Sri Lankan before the world? I don't know what that question means. Could you clarify that? All right. Sachinta says, I completed my bachelor's in biomed in Australia and will be starting my honors degree, which is approximately 8 months to reach. How would you advise achieve the best result? I hope I read that right. Work hard, do good research. If that means like spending, you know, 14 hours in a lab, then that's what you got to do. One of my minions who just started his PhD program, he called me yesterday and he said, Hasini, I spent 14 days in a lab. And I was like, huh, really? And he was like, yeah, it's the longest that I've ever spent in lab. And I was like, huh, really? I didn't make you spend 12 hours in a lab? And he was like, no, you were like very nice compared to like what I have to do now. And I was like, huh. I think for every person, you know, you just have to experience it. No amount of preparation or me telling you would sort of prepare you for what your journey is. But just work hard and know that, you know, sometimes your experiments do fail. My experiments do fail. I'm actually rerunning some of my experiments right now because they failed. But you just have to keep persisting, and you just have to sort of, keep moving forward with your research. And sometimes hypotheses fail, and you just have to come up with a new one. And sometimes you have to look at your failure as sort of an opportunity to create a new hypothesis and build an even better project. Hashan says, do you use IT systems in your research? In your opinion, what level does IT systems contribute to biology research? If by IT systems you mean, do we use like software? Yeah, we use a ton. We wouldn't be able to do our research without a lot of support from computational biology. Computational biology itself is a separate field that a lot of people are working with, especially in my techniques. For what I do, I have to use specialized programs to sort of extract the data and make sense of the data. So I think biology and computational biology is very important for moving the field forward. Niranti says, when will your discoveries come into the market where those affected can benefit? The timeline is still up in the air, to be honest, because we have to go through extensive human testing. And so that could mean we could essentially get therapies out in the next 5 years, or that means it could take another 10, 15 years. And this just all depends on how the patients fare in the clinical trials and so on. We're hoping for the best, and this is why we are extensively we're doing preclinical testing. We're hoping that this preclinical testing will reflect what we will see in the humans, and so hopefully we will be able to sort of do a somewhat accelerated clinical trial. But again, we're still at the planning stages, and it's very difficult to say. How can we help those affected with cancer? Some say mental treatment is the best way. What's your opinion? How can we affect those with cancer? I do think, giving them the strength, helping them mentally does definitely help. I think cancer it's a difficult disease, from what I've seen. It not only affects your body, and like the treatment not only affects your body, but it also, I think, mentally brings you down, because whenever we say cancer, we associate it with death. We don't say, oh, you have cholesterol or heart disease. It's not associated with death, even though it technically, means down the line you might have to do a bypass or something like that. I think, just, mental strength and is important to be supportive, and, giving them sort of the assurance that they can fight it and, overcome it, I think is an important part of cancer treatment. All right. All right, Chandra, I do see your message. I don't think I've seen your message on LinkedIn, just because I've gotten so many messages, but I will get back to you on that. But to be clear, I'm not an oncologist, and so I don't give advice on treatments. I am a cancer researcher, and so I might not be the best person to ask for advice. Any more questions? All right. How do you determine your career path correctly? I wish I had the answer to that, to be honest. I don't. You know, again, all I can say is, you know, be passionate, work hard, persist, and hopefully things will fall into place, and hopefully things will work out. So I'm still trying to figure out how to correctly determine my career path as well. So I don't think I have the best advice for that. But yeah. Hi, Keshab. That's my friend. So I'm just going to wave hi at him. Is it feel like when we, I am not sure what you're asking, Parmi. I'm sorry. Could you rephrase that question? What differentiates Sri Lankans in the field of academics? What are the positives and the negatives? Okay, I will answer this question. What differentiates Sri Lankans in the field of academics? We're just Sri Lankans. We come from a tiny island off the coast of India. I think that's what differentiates us. Every student is different. Every student is unique. I don't think there's anything in particular that differentiates us. What are the positives and negatives? Positives. I wish I knew. I wish I knew what the positives of me being Sri Lankan were. I think, you know, we are pretty laid back. We're hardworking people for the most part. I'm not sure how to answer this question. Negatives. I think negatives, I can say that sometimes our sort of academic training isn't sufficient. And by that, I mean, you know, when I came to the States, I didn't know what a citation was. And I think that was because I wasn't taught what a citation was, or that I had to cite people. And so that was something I had to learn. And there were so many other things that I had to pick up on the way. Definitely writing. My writing was not as good as some of the students here. And so I had to improve my writing for sure. And also learning how to communicate, learning how to raise my hand and answer a question, or even ask a question in class, or, you know, at a seminar. Something that I've seen, and especially in my talks in the past when I've done talks in Sri Lanka, is, you know, students don't raise their hands and ask questions, even though they do have questions. They would like wait for me after I was done, as I was getting ready to leave, and then approach me one-on-one. And like, I think if you're an academic, you have to have a voice, you have to ask questions. It's not that, you know, it's not that you're, you know, disrespecting the speaker. In fact, it's the opposite. If you ask intelligent questions, it shows that you are engaged and that you are really curious about the subject. And I think that's something that's possibly a negative for Sri Lankans, the fact that we don't speak up more, we don't ask enough of questions. And that's something I had to sort of train myself in the past couple of years to really, you know, be able to give constructive criticism when I see work, because it is important. It's important for me to share ideas to strengthen other people's work. And also, you know, if I expect to receive feedback, I should also be able to give feedback. And so I think that may be a negative in terms of being, you know, a Sri Lankan in an academic setting. Dear Hasini, which cell lines did you use for your experiments? And do you think that this mechanism would apply for antiviral research? I don't know if it would apply to antiviral research, but I used a bunch of cell lines. I used MDMB231s, HT1080s, I used NAM6s, I used REHs, I used Kelly's, I use SMS Sense. I can go on. There are so many different cell lines that I have used in my research career. What are the books that have greatly influenced your life? So many, but I think my favorite, or one of the books that has sort of helped me over the past few years, has been Sheryl Sandberg's latest book about, dealing with grief and dealing with loss and dealing with failures. I read that book and I was just blown away because the way she explains everything, there were certain things that I was feeling at a certain point and I couldn't make sense of it. And she just put it down on words, and I thought, wow, that's absolutely brilliant. So I really do love her books. I think she's an incredible businesswoman, and I think she's an incredible person. And how to attain postdoc funding at Stanford? Can you please tell us about your current cancer research going on there and your lab specifically? How to attain postdoc funding at Stanford? So usually when you apply for a postdoc, your research mentor already has money for you, at least for the first couple of years. And so that's part of, you go under one of their grants. And then as you go through sort of your postdoc, you can choose, and this is a choice because some people choose not to apply for fellowships or grants. You can choose to apply for a fellowship or grant. And these fellowships or grants can come from the National Institute of Health, such as NCI, National Cancer Institute, or it can come from private foundations, or it can come internally from Stanford as well. Stanford does have a lot of internal grants. My current research is basically in the Department of Pediatrics. I work with the brilliant Dr. Cara Davis, and we are looking, my project specifically looks at mechanisms governing relapse in B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And the other project that I work on neuroblastoma, where I am looking at immune architecture and co-expression of tumor antigens so that we can develop better immunotherapies against neuroblastoma. And for this, I use Multiplexed Ion Beam Imaging in collaboration with Dr. Mike Angelo. Can you say something about your family background in your childhood? I can. I am the youngest of two children. I have a brother who's the genius of the family. Believe it or not, I am not the smartest one in the family. My parents are, my mother is a lawyer and my father is an engineer. So they're both extremely smart. But they did let me run around and, have fun when I was younger. They actually didn't really force me to study. They were very chilled out with me. At least I don't know what my brother has to say about that. But they were very encouraging, and when I came to my O levels and A levels, they definitely wanted me to do well, and so they did emphasize the importance of academics, and they definitely wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to go to university in the U.S., which is why I applied to universities in the U.S. And they wanted me to have a well-rounded international education, which is why they chose to send me abroad. Can you please talk something more related to your research? Technical details, current progress. Already done that. Sorry, kind of late to the party, but maybe if we have time afterwards, I will talk more. How many books have you read to this day? I haven't kept count, sorry. That's not something I keep count. Thank you for wanting to do an article on me, and just send me an email or a Facebook message, and hopefully I will see it and I will get back to you. How do you usually gather data? So for my current project, I use mass cytometry, and so that basically is where we use metal conjugated antibodies and run it through a CyTOF machine. And so we collect data by time of flight, where we measure using time of flight, we measure protein expression, surface and intracellular protein expression. And that is sort of recorded by a machine and our customized software. And then once we have that, we can do all these different data manipulations to really look at expression of proteins at a single cell level. How do you keep your intellectual curiosity alive? It's been found that people lose their curiosity with age. I mean, my job is pretty interesting, you know. It's constantly changing. There's so much more research. There's so much research coming out, and so every day there's something new and exciting that I get to read and learn about. And so I think that's one of the reasons that I haven't really lost my intellectual curiosity. And I think the fact that, you know, now I'm in a completely different field compared to what I was doing in the past couple of years, especially I was working in adult cancers for the longest time, and now I've switched to pediatric cancers, and pediatric cancers are completely different than adult cancers. And so you know, the fact that it's a new disease to learn, I think, has sort of kept me going. All right, so we've been at this for almost an hour. So does anybody have any more questions for me? If not, we can call this a wrap. But if you do have more questions, please do send them in. I do have time. It's not like I have to be anywhere. But I don't want to really waste anybody's time at this point. No? Oh, I see there's a new comment. Oh. Ha, am I married? Okay, can I address this question real quick? Because this is a question that I actually get pretty often. And one of my friends was telling me that if you like Google search my name, one of the automatic like completion thingies that come up is like Hasini Jayatilaka, husband. And so I'm going to throw this question back to you and say, does it matter? Does it matter if I'm married? Does it matter if I'm single? Does it matter? Like, why does it matter? Do you think that I couldn't have done all this if I wasn't married? Or do you think I couldn't have done all this if I was married? So that's my question to you guys. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do? I take a break. I go for a run. I do yoga. I switch off. I watch a movie. I go hang out with my friends. And usually that does the trick. And I have very supportive friends and family who I am fortunate enough to spend time with. And so that is what I do when I feel overwhelmed or unfocused. And it's good for me to switch off and then come back the next day or come back the next week and refocus and think about what I want to do. Final question. I believe the fact that if there is negative, there might be positive too. Any scientific research that proves that malignant have any positive impact on the human race? Not that I know of, but I might be wrong. Is there anything positive that comes out of cancer? I don't believe so. I'm going to say no on that question. Is cancer a business or a disease? Depends on who you ask. The reason, we researchers do what we do is because we believe it's a disease. And I think it's all about perspective. And I think it's also knowing the disease and knowing sort of the monster that it is. It's not as, I think, simple as people may think. And so I'm going to say it's a disease. Any advice how to reach a professor at Stanford University with regards to postgraduate studies? Postgraduate studies, so let me address this a little bit, because I've actually gotten emails from people requesting to do their postgraduate studies with this. In the US, if you want to pursue a PhD or a master's degree, you have to apply into the programs. And the way you apply into the programs is by applying into the specific departments. The individual professors really don't have much say when it comes to the admissions process, because the admissions process is done by admissions committee, which I believe consists of not only professors, but also current graduate students and postdoc students and so on. And they review your application to see if you are suitable for the program, and that's when they admit you into the program. So individual professors don't really have much say into whether you can get into the PhD program or not. For postdocs, of course, it's a different game. It's a different ball game, where if you're interested in doing a postdoc, you would email the professors directly and ask them if they have a position open in their lab. And that's how the culture is in America. What are the habits that you have developed over time that have been most helpful to you? Probably just being super organized. Having like my day planned is definitely a good habit that has sort of helped me keep track with all the experiments I have to do, all the data analysis I have to do, all the meetings I have to go to, and so on. I also think having a balanced lifestyle has also helped me over the past couple of years, because I think there were moments where I would just get burnt out. And so just having sort of a good, healthy balance has also helped me do better research and so on. All right, so we are at 1 hour. I think I'm going to answer one more question, and I think that is it from me. So one last question. No more questions? All right, let me check with I see one question. Difference between study system of Sri Lanka and US. Your suggestion changes integrated. I do have ideas, I do have thoughts, I do have comments, but I don't think at this point it is really my place to sort of talk about them. I haven't been part of the Sri Lankan education system for about 10 years now, and I'm sure things have changed and things are done differently, and so I don't think it's fair for me to sort of comment on that right now. So yeah, sorry for the disappointing answer. All right. All right, so thank you everybody for tuning in. It was a pleasure to answer your questions and connect with you and interact with you. I hope I answered all your questions and didn't disappoint you. And thank you so much for all your support. Thank you especially to the Sustainable Education Foundation for organizing this, advertising it. You guys do an incredible job, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with you guys. So thank you and goodbye.